Native Americans, who they are, and the issues they face. Native Americans, also referred to as indigenous people of the United States, represent a diverse group of communities with rich cultural traditions, unique histories, and enduring resilience. Cultural aspects. Native American cultures are incredibly diverse, with 547 federally recognized tribes in the United States, each with distinct languages, traditions, and practices. Their cultural heritage includes storytelling, art, music, dance, and spiritual practices deeply tied to their connection with the land. Spirituality and land stewardship. Many Native American communities view their land as sacred and integral to their identity. Their sustainable land use practices contribute significantly to environmental conservation and climate change mitigation. Cultural revitalization. Despite historical efforts to assimilate Native Americans, such as forcing children into boarding schools to erase their cultural identity, many tribes are actively revitalizing their languages and traditions today. This cultural resurgence strengthens community bonds and preserves their heritage for future generations. Challenges they face. Native Americans have faced centuries of systemic oppression, and many challenges persist today. Health disparities. Native American communities experience significant health inequities, including higher rates of chronic diseases, mental health issues, and limited access to health care. Behavioral factors like physical activity and dietary intake are often influenced by systemic barriers. Economic inequity. Many Native Americans face barriers to economic opportunities due to geographical isolation, limited access to quality education, and discrimination. These factors contribute to higher poverty rates and unemployment. Environmental threats. Indigenous lands are often disproportionately affected by environmental degradation and climate change, threatening their way of life and cultural practices. Historical trauma. The legacy of forced assimilation, displacement, and violence has left lasting psychological and social impacts on Native American communities. Despite these challenges, Native American communities demonstrate remarkable resilience rooted in their cultural strengths and adaptive strategies. They have made efforts to preserve and revitalize languages, traditions, and spiritual practices, foster a strong sense of identity and community. Tight-knit family and community networks provide emotional and practical support, helping individuals navigate challenges. The deep relationship with the environment not only sustains their cultural practices but also positions them as leaders in environmental conservation. Many tribes are asserting their sovereignty and advocating for their rights, including land rights, healthcare access, and education reform. Current societal approach. Key approaches include legal protections and sovereignty. Policies such as the Indian Child Welfare Act and the Violence Against Women Act have strengthened the tribal sovereignty and provided protections for native communities. Cultural revitalization. Many tribes are actively working to preserve and revitalize their languages, traditions, and spiritual practices. These efforts foster a sense of identity and resilience. Economic development. Tribal governments and organizations are pursuing economic development initiatives such as gaming, enterprises, and renewable energy projects to create jobs and generate revenue for their communities. Advocacy and representation. Native Americans are increasingly advocating for their rights and representation in political, social, and cultural spheres. This includes efforts to address stereotypes and promote accurate portrayals of indigenous peoples in media and education. Social policy and local social policy at the local, state, and federal levels that impact the well-being of Native Americans. Federal policies. The federal government has historically played a significant role in shaping the well-being of Native Americans, both positively and negatively. Some key federal policies include the Indian Self-Determination and Education Assistance Act of 1975, which allowed tribes to manage federal programs and services such as healthcare and education, fostering greater autonomy and self-governance. Tribes have been allowed, through policies, to regain their sovereignty by gaining control over their resources, which has led to improved economic outcomes. The Indian Health Service, established in 1955, provides healthcare to Native Americans. However, it remains underfunded, contributing to persistent health disparities. Recent efforts have focused on addressing mental health disparities and the impact of historical trauma on indigenous communities. The Native American Languages Act was enacted to protect and promote the use of native languages. Funding for language revitalization programs has been shown to promote healing and long-term well-being. Federal policies have supported economic initiatives such as tribal gaming operations, which have become a significant source of revenue for many tribes. These initiatives have helped reduce poverty and unemployment in some native communities. State-level policies. States with significant Native American populations have implemented programs to improve educational outcomes for Native students, such as culturally relevant curricula and scholarships for higher education. Some states have passed laws recognizing tribal sovereignty and collaborating with the tribes on issues like natural resource management and law enforcement. States often work with tribes and the IHS to expand healthcare access, particularly in areas where native populations are concentrated. Local level policies. Local governments have and organizations frequently collaborate with tribes to establish cultural centers, museums, and programs that celebrate and preserve native heritage. Local policies address land use and environmental concerns, ensuring that tribal lands are protected from exploitation and degradation. Challenges and gaps. Despite these policies, Native Americans continue to face significant barriers, such as underfunding. Federal programs like the IHS and Bureau of Indian Affairs are chronically underfunded, limiting their effectiveness. Systemic inequities. Native communities rank bottom in terms of health, education, and employment outcomes, highlighting the need for more comprehensive and equitable policies. Legal and bureaucratic hurdles. Complex federal laws and inefficient program delivery often hinder tribes' ability to fully benefit from existing policies. Advocacy plan for addressing the needs of the Native American communities. Establishing clear advocacy goals that include improving healthcare access, advancing education equity, protecting tribal sovereignty, and addressing housing and economic disparities. Build partnerships with Native organizations such as the Native American Rights Fund, which advocates for tribal sovereignty and policy changes at the federal level. The National Congress of American Indians, which advocates for tribal sovereignty and policy changes at the federal level. Organizations like Native American Connections that works on providing housing stability, community health, and policy advocacy. Social media campaign effort. Healing Together, Access for All. My social media campaign is designed to raise awareness about healthcare disparities faced by Native American communities and to advocate to improved access to healthcare services. Call for action. Join us in the bridging, Join us in bridging the healthcare gap for our Native American communities. Share our message, sign the petition to increase funding for the Indian Health Service, and donate to support the mobile health clinics in rural tribal areas. Together, we can ensure every Native American has access to the care they deserve. Call for action continued to effectively engage audiences. We call on Native Americans who have faced barriers to healthcare access to tell their story. This would go a long way to humanize the issue, thus fostering empathy and drive engagement. To leverage the power of trusted community figures and to build credibility and to encourage participation, we are also collaborating with Native American influencers, tribal leaders, and healthcare advocates to amplify this message. We would have these trusted voices share posts, host live Q&A sessions, and also participate in virtual events in which healthcare disparities and solutions will be discussed. Survey on needs assessment for the Native American community. What is your current living situation? Answers range from own home, rent home, live with family, temporary housing, and homeless. What are the most pressing issues facing your community? Select all that apply. Answers range from healthcare access, education, employment opportunities, housing, cultural preservation, substance abuse, mental health services, and other. How would you rate the quality of healthcare services available to you? Very poor, poor, average, good, very good. What specific healthcare services do you feel are lacking in your community? What types of educational supports are needed in your community? Select all that apply. Early childhood education, K-12 education, higher education, vocational training, adult education, tutoring services, after-school programs, and other. How would you rate the availability of employment opportunities in your area? Very poor, poor, average, good, very good. What types of jobs or industries do you believe should be developed in your community? How important is cultural preservation to you? Not important, slightly important, moderately important, very important, extremely important. Evaluating advocacy. Evaluating advocacy efforts is very important in that it gives the advocate the opportunity to make judgment of what they have accomplished throughout the process. In evaluating my advocacy plan, I will begin by defining clear evaluation goals, which would include measurement of the extent to which my advocacy efforts have increased awareness in the community, determine whether the plan successfully engaged stakeholders, which includes tribal leaders, community members, and policymakers, securing resources or policy changes to support the needs assessment. Lessons learned. The lessons I learned during this exercise was that I had to be sensitive while collecting information. While in the community, I was mindful of the cultural values and was respectful of them. It is only through this way that I was able to gain the trust of the members of the community. This enabled them to open up freely and felt comfortable answering my questions.